Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Peah, Pedig Vav, Halacha Beis, and Gimel. We are learning today Daf Nun Beis. We left off on Daf Nun Beis, Amid Aleph, 4 lines from the top of the Amid, and let us quickly Chazer review the flow, the sugya that we are in. We quoted yesterday a Mishnah in Ksubas in Bavli and Daf Ayin Ches Amid Beis. The Mishnah is discussing in the topic of the difference between Nechset Soim Barzel and Nechset Maloik, that if a woman, while married, wants to sell her Nechset Malug, even though these are properties that really belong to her, Eloma, the Chachamim allowed the husband during the marriage to have benefit from the user fruit. He's plucking from the properties, but it's hers, which means that theoretically she can sell it. Midrabanan, she's not allowed to sell it because she's married and the husband has the rights of the user fruit. Question is, that's the Mishnah over there, if she's only halachically engaged, even though mitzadine iser veheter, she's a bona fide married woman. Like we explained yesterday, the Torah engagement after Kiddushin, she needs a get. If she's mezana, there's a chiyuv misa. But mitzadine de mamayna, really, the husband doesn't, even midrabanan, have the user fruit rights to her properties, which would be why you would think she would be allowed to sell it. Or no, since she's already engaged, she's going to get married, maybe already she cannot sell it. So the Mishnah differentiated between the following. If she owns these properties, as an example, she got it via Yerusha, it already came into her possession prior to her Eidosin. Even though now she's engaged, likula alma, she is allowed to sell it. But if she only, let's say, the lashon in the Mishnah is naflula, but it doesn't have to mean only naflula. It can mean, hey, she's a businesswoman, she made money. Achilik. If she only owns it, she owned it only after she was engaged. Machlik is Bishamai and Besilah. Bishamai says she still has the right to sell it. Timkoid. Basil says, nah, she's not allowed to sell it. That's the Mishnah. The kasha that was asked is that we have in Mesechtes Eduyos a compilation of all of the exceptional cases where Beishamai is the Mekel and Basil is the Machman. Why wasn't this Mishnah mentioned over there? That was the kasha. Beishamai is the Mekel. She's allowed to sell it. To which Rabbi Yossi gives a Gavaldik answer. When it's din Iser Veheter, either it's kasher or treif. Kasher, kula, treif, chumra. But when it comes to dinah de mamayna, as we all understand, there's no such a thing as a kula and a chumra, or at least in most cases, there is no such a thing as a kula and a chumra. Like, for example, in this Mishnah, the fact that the woman is allowed to sell it, well, from her perspective, is a kula. From the perspective of the chasin, that's a chumra. It's not a chumra mishnei tzedadim, or it's not a kula mishnei tzedadim. That's why it's not mentioned over there. You have to remember this to get the flow. Now we don't have to review. The Gemara already on top of the Amid challenged Rabbi Yossi from the first Mishnah in Pedig Vav. We resolved that. And now we are in the middle of the Sugya. And we're just giving an intro. The Gemara is going to go back, because we mentioned the Mishnah in Ksubas Dafayin Ches. We're going to quote, after we go back and forth, back to this Kasha Teretz of Rabbi Yossi, we're going to go back, we're going to quote a Braisa that will elaborate with the Mishnah that we just quoted in Ksubas, to have more pratim over there. That will be one topic. And then we're going to have today one long Mishnah. Maybe we'll begin the Gemara on top of Nun Gimel, I don't know. But the one long Mishnah is Behemshech to the Sugya of Shikha. The Mishnah is going to give us 3 instances in which both Beishamai and Basil agree that an uncollected oimed does not become shikha. The exception. The Mishnah will give you the words. The Mishnah then will explain 2 of the 3. The third is very simple. By the way, the third was quoted already yesterday. We'll get there. And the key rule, the Zajac klal, that will be that shikha only applies to a sheaf, to an oimed, that's forgotten in such a way where retrieving it involves returning And the Torah says, Lo sashuv l'kachtoi. But as we'll see, there'll be cases where even though you forgot it, retrieving it doesn't demand returning. And then you will be allowed to retrieve it, which means it's not shikha, as we will see when we unpackage this Gemara. So we left off again 4 lines from the top of the Amid on Daf Nun Beis. And Amalei. That's where we're up to. Amalei, this is Vaited. Pinchas is challenging Rabbi Yossi, who says, which makes sense, that in a duyos, it's only a kula mishnei tzadadim, only a chumana mishnei tzadadim, which generally would mean dinah de mamoina will not be included. Problem is, not from what the Mishnah doesn't say, from what the Mishnah does say. But we do have in a duyos a quotation of our Mishnah, mamish our Mishnah, which is Oymen, location, Shusamach, Legafa Velagadish. These are fixed landmarks, as we learned yesterday. Bakar and Caleb, the way we're goyres and the way we put the Ivram is we're speaking about movable landmarks, not fixed landmarks, and regardless, Ushchachai, and on that we still have a machlok is Bishame and Bisilo. Bishame says it's not shikha. Now, again, guys, when it's not shikha, what does that mean? Non-shikha means that the owner gets to keep it. Non-shikha, the owner gets, from the perspective of the owner, it's akula. The Mishnah quotes it there. Bisilo says, ooh, it's shikha, which means you have to give it to the ani, achumra, and we quote it. Well, from depends from whose perspective. From the perspective of the balabas, you're right, it should be quoted. But what about from the perspective of the ani? When Beis Shammai says Einoi Shikha, that's a chumrah. That's the norm of Beis Shammai. V'hareyu kala balabayis. We're speaking about Beis Shammai, so it's unique. Beis Shammai is makel. You're right, but the problem with Rabbi Yossi, who makes sense, it's only a kula for the balabayis, who says Einoi Shikha, but v'chaymuhu laniyem. And since it's chamur laniyem, why is it mentioned? Answers the Gemara, Amar lei, it still fits. Rabbi Yossi stands. It's kalula balabais. That's clear. Ein shikha. He gets to keep it. It's not a chomer to aniyim. Why not? Ein a chomer laniyim, because a chomer means something that you owned. Now you disown. You don't own. Like the owner owns the oimarim. If he wouldn't have forgotten it, he would have owned it. Shikha means he no longer owns it. The Aniyah never owned it. Gavaldik. Sha'adayin lo yizachu bahen. What's called a chumrah, says the Pnei Moshe, more or less in middle of the narrow lines. It's around 40 lines from the top. Kalu lo balabais veinu chamil aniyim. Lebeis Shammai, it's like a sha'adayin lo yizachu bahen. You're right. But if you owned something, at least a schus, doesn't even have to be that it's in your pocket. And now they take the schus away. Ooh, it's a chumrah, it's something negative. If you never had it, you can't call it a chumrah. And that's a big cloud. I'll give you an example. But now that we're coming into Pesach, that we have the few heterim, what allows us to work on cholamayit. We learned this good. Then we learned Masechtas Moed Cotton. That really, it's not that cholamayid, you have certain restrictions. Cholamayid, you can't work. Elamah, you have to have the heterim. One is hefsid merubah. So I have a simple question. If a person earns a lot of money, whatever that means, and if they don't go to work, they're not going to earn a lot of money. Is that called a hefsid merubah? Everyone can argue, I'm going to go work, because if I won't work, I won't get paid. That's a hefsid merubah. For me, it's merubah. The answer is no. Hefsid merubah means something that you already own, you will lose. If you never own it, the not making profit is not called a loss. That's negea also when it comes to dinah hezekois. That's the lahavdil mamish ben kodesh to narishkeiten over here with the goyish law. When people sue each other and they start explaining how much money they're owed, because they would have earned X amount of money. It's not normal. The Torah doesn't take that into account. That's it's not called a chumrah. Now the Gemara has a gavaldik challenge on his answer. Check the Gemara. If that's the case, let's go back to the ksubas. It all began with the ksubas. So what did we say? Rabbi Yossi says, I'll tell you why the Mishnah ksubas is not mentioned. Rabbi Hillel is a chumrah, right? It's not a chumrah. We said Bishamai is a kula. Why is it a kula? Because she can sell it. It's a kula, but it's not mentioned because for the husband it's a chumrah. Why? Because she can sell it. He never owned it. So now the original kasha comes back. So frek the Gemara the Emar Ufach say also here means in ksubas that kalu leisha. Quote the Mishnah. It should have quoted the Mishnah. Beishamai is make. Why? Because she can sell it. But what was the answer? No, yeah, she can sell it. That's bad for the husband. Why? It's not that he never owned it. He's only engaged to her. The Einochai Labal is. I'm sorry, Einochai Labal. It's a husband. It's not an owner. In the case of Naflu Loi Mishanis Arsa, this is a Gavaldik Kasha. Answers the Gemara. You can't compare an ani who has no rights in your property before a shikha. If you'll have shikha, he has rights. You can't compare that to a man who already gave kedushin. A man who already gave kedushin already has a halachic relationship with her. Emes, that right now it's not a din of dimamoina, but erusin leads to kedushin, and the erusin is already there. Amalei answers Rabbi Yosi Mikivin Shekitcha. I'm going to tell you that in the case where Naflu Loi Mishanis Arsa, which is the case of there in Ksubais, what's that Naflu Law? Naflu Law, if she's already engaged, that Lizchusa Lizchusa Naflu, you do say it already fell into a schus, which means even though currently he cannot use it, but he will use it. We had yesterday on Daf Nun Aleph Amud Beis, 5 lines from the bottom of Sab Pnei Moshe, who says that Mishum the Erusin Oisa Safik Nesuyin. In other words, you can't guarantee that a woman who's engaged will have Nesuyin, but that's what Erusin is for. Erusin is not a stand place. Erusin leads to Nesuyin. So there's a bigger schus to the husband. So yes, there Rabbi Yossi stands, it's a chumrah to the husband. It's a chumrah to the chassid. That's why it's not mentioned. Okay, Atkan, why the whole thing was brought over here, but now we mentioned ksubas, so we're going to continue to learn a brayso that expounds on the Mishnah that we quoted, ksubas Bavli Ein Ches Amud Beis. Omar Rabbi Yehuda, which is Rabbi Yehuda. Omru Lufnei Rabban Gamliel. They asked him the following: Choyel va'arusa ishtoi, v'hanasuya ishtoi. As we mentioned, as far as issues is concerned, which is she's a married woman, not a half-married woman. She's a full married woman. The same get that's needed to dissolve Nasuyin, the same is needed to dissolve an Erusin. And the Chachamim went ahead and said that when a woman who's married, if she sells her Nechsam Aloy, even though it's really hers, Mazu Michrobato, Abzu Michrobato. In other words, it's a hemshach, based on what Rabbi Yossi said, a very good answer. A woman who's Mikudeshes is already in a relationship with a man. We should have invalidated it. And let me say like this. First of all, just a chazak we learned yesterday, that even Beisilo, this kasha is not on Beishamai, even though Beisilo says Loi Simkar, we learned yesterday, Loi Simkar is only Lechatchila. B'di'evet, if she sold it, B'di'evet, the sale stands. Why wouldn't they go further? Why wouldn't they dissolve the sale? And I want to add some flavor to the kasha. Think about it, Chedna. She owns Nechsam Aloik. She owns it. The Chachamim gave the husband the right to the user fruit. Let's give her the permission to sell it. What do you think is going to happen? You think the husband will completely lose? He won't. Let's say she has a property, it's worth $1 million. Good. And it's hers, Nechsam Aloik. So when it's giving every year, the gross at 10%, I don't know what the percents work. In Brazil, my father would say halavai 5%. Here in America, 20%. Whatever, you get the percent. Okay, she'll sell it, she'll make it into cash. She cannot eat up the cash. Just to remember, it's Nechsam Aloik. So instead of him getting user fruit from the field, if such a thing were to happen, that he'll get the Nechsam Aloik from the interest of the money. Just to make it clear. In other words, if we wouldn't have said Michra Bato, it's not that she'll sell it and he's out of the picture. Instead of getting user fruit from this property, he'll get it from the money. If she'll use the money and she'll buy another property, he'll get it from over there. Nevertheless, the Chachamim said, no. So why wouldn't they extend it to Erusin? Again, behemshich to what Rabbi Yossi says, that a woman who's Meoreses, even though he doesn't yet have the right, but Erusin leads into Kedushin. So Amar Lohen, Rabban Gamliel responded to the Chevre, to the Tanoim, that I'll tell you something. You're asking the wrong question. Rabbi Gamliel was going in the other direction. Rabbi Gamliel held that a woman, theoretically, he accepted what the sage just said. This is only the Rabbanan. He didn't agree with the Rabbanan that she cannot sell. Like I just mentioned, let her sell. It's hers. Let her sell. She can never eat the keren. Okay? But then the husband should use the paytas from the money or from the other property. So Rabbi Gamliel says, you have a kasha, I have the opposite kasha. No, it's leave things the way they are. Leave status quo. You want to change things? And the Gemara clarifies, what's the chadashim? No, it's even property that she inherited after she was married, in which we said that if she sells it, the sale is nullified. Midrabanan. Rabbi Gamliel says, let her sell it, gesundheit. And then the husband will have the paytas from the geld. The ilu, what's the yeshenim? What with the question? The case where she got it, where we said even Beis Hillel holds that b'di'evet the sale is a sale. Of course, the sale is a sale. So not
isn't
only,
it a similar expression like in the Bavli, the same subject?
Many times, I don't know. I don't remember, but that's a usual Talmudic answer. It's a very powerful debate strategy. In other words, he's not fanenfering. He's challenging the whole premise. The whole din. You want to make B like A. Yeah, why isn't B like A? I don't understand A. You want to open up the can? Let's change A. I don't even want to talk about B. The bottom line is that B'mishani says Medrabanan batal. Enough law Mishnah Sarsa even LeBeis Hillel b'di'evet it is a sale because there is a difference between Erusin and Enusoy. Okay, Chevra, we're moving on to the Mishnah. Mishnah has few words, and I know we started a few minutes late, but it's good. We have enough time to learn the Mishnah properly. It's very helpful to have the illustration. Not for the first case, but for the second case. The Mishnah is going to give three cases, like we spoke about in the introduction. The Pedic began Machloikes b'Shamai and Desillo. Now we're going to have a Mishnah that's going to give three scenarios where B'Poyel there was Shikha. Halachically, it's not Shikha. Now the first case is only Rashi Hashuras, case number one. I know that in the literal translation would be the heads of the row. It doesn't only mean that. Let me tell you what it means. Let me just say Baal Peh like this. Similar, not the same, but similar to what we learned by Peah, that what kicks in the obligation of Peah, what triggers, we said, the harvest. Prior to harvesting, there's nothing to leave. And therefore we said, remember, that you can't, if a person didn't harvest and they want to designate the first ear, that's Peah. You can't designate the first ear as Peah because there's no chiyuv yet, you didn't begin. You have to begin in epes. We said once, even if there's one ear, you cut a few kernels off the ear and then you can leave the rest. Not the same, but similar. Shikha means you are gathering the bundles. Okay, for the record, Shikha is both forgetting to cut a patch, that's called Shikha's Kama, forgetting to cut standing grain, and forgetting to gather a bundle. Everything we're learning in the Mishnah goes to both, but it's the same thing. I'm going to speak about the bundles because that's what the Mishnah will be talking about, even though the Gemara, when it brings sources to this halacha, will speak about both. Let's speak about Shikchas Oiman. So you have a field. Let's say you have one row, and you have 10 sheaves on the row. If you didn't even gather the first, you began from the second. It's not called Shikha. Why not? Because you forgot, you didn't begin there. When you begin, and then you skipped one, if you didn't even take the first, now if you took number 2, and you forgot number 3, and you took number 4, number 3 will be Shikha. You began gathering the bundles, and you went over one, don't go back. But before they're not going back, you can't forget if you didn't even begin. That makes sense? That makes sense. That is the top of the row. But the Rashi Hashurais doesn't only mean the head of the row. Rashi Hashurais also means the last one. But let me clarify, this is very important. If there's one row, then the end means the end. If you have many rows, then the end means the final one. Not the end of row number one if there's a row number two. The last one of one row is the final. If it's not one row, whichever one is the final. If you left the final, the Torah says, B'negei shikha, lo yisashuv lekachtoi. Lo yisashuv lekachtoi means that you are working after the one that you forgot. You went on working afterwards. Don't go back. If there's nothing afterwards, it's called you ended early. We don't consider that going back, even though you walked away. You can argue, yeah, I walked away from the field and I'm going back. No, you didn't work after the one that you forgot. So Rashi Ashura is the first rule, that if you forgot either the first or the final, which would mean the end of row number one, if there's only row number one, or if you have 20 rows, the last one of the last row. Yani, you good? That's easy. The next rule, for which whoever has a picture, it will be helpful. I'll do the best I could to describe it. You forgot a sheaf, that there is an adjacent sheaf that demonstrates that what? Not that it was not forgotten, but that lav dafka it was forgotten. So if you can imagine, guys, if you have a picture, look at the picture. If you don't have a picture, imagine a person has 10 rows, and every row has 10 sheaves. Now, let's all speak about oimarim. When you are gathering the bundles, let's speak about directions. You can gather it north, south, or you can gather it east, west, or west, east. It doesn't make a difference. Top down, vertical, or horizontal. So we just mentioned that even though Rashi Hashurais in plural doesn't only mean the first, it also means the last. It doesn't mamash mean the last. It means the final one. So if you're looking at a picture, if you began on row A and you chose to gather it north, south, forgetting number 10, based on the Rashi Hashurais, you're not exempt. Why not? Because it's not the final one, right? Because you have row B and you have row C. Okay, Danny? But if you forgot the last one, south, on row A, that won't be shikha. Why won't it be shikha? Because when someone looks at this field right now, even though the emes is that you chose to go north-south, mitzad north-south, you forgot it. But what were to happen if you're going to go west-east or east-west? Then the one that you forgot is either the first or it's the final. Even if you're going east-west, it's the final. The final is not shikha because of Rashi Hashuras. Now, when you look, in other words, if someone would not look at the worker working, he would just look at the field, he would not know. You don't know which way you're gathering. You don't know. That's the meaning of oimer shekeneg de mechich. Keneg de mechich means is not that there's an adjacent that makes it clear that it's not shikha. It's an interesting expression. That when you look at it, you don't know. Because of their shekenegdois, you don't know whether it's the last one or whether it's from the Rashi Hashurais. Even though do be'emes based, you forgot it. The fact that an observer doesn't know, then we include it in the Rashi Hashurais. Danny, you got that? Okay, but that was the big thing today. Now we're going to Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis. The third one we mentioned in yesterday's shir. And I want to acknowledge that again, it was a technical share yesterday, that our Mishnah is only Legirsas Rabbi Yeshua, Legirsas Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Azaria. It's a whole different thing. Okay, we know that already. So it's amazing. It's not that common, but you can have a Stam Mishnah with a statement. And really, that's only according to one version, but we're going with this version. And that is that when you were gathering the sheaves, you picked up the sheep, whether you're the balabas, whether you're the pile, you picked it up in order to take it to the pile. After you picked it up, you said, I'm not taking this to the threshing. I'm making pillowcases. I need to have some stuffing. You decided to take it to the city. So you picked it up, and your mama should put it on the side. And then you forgot it. You never gathered it, but in the beginning, there was no shikha. Then there was shikha. That's called Omer Shehechzik B'Dolichas Elohim, and then B'Shachach. So that's another din. According to our version, even though the Mishnah began, Beishamai is called Perek Beishamai, Machloket Beishamai. So we have three cases where they argue. In this case, in this third case also, Moedim, everyone agrees that it's not Shikha, because Shikha means that when you were gathering it, you forgot. When you were gathering, you didn't forget. No Shikha is not Shikha. Now, the final case doesn't need more explanation. The Mishnah here will unpackage both the first and the second cases of the three cases. It says the Mishnah, the older Mishnah, Elohim Rashi Ashurais. And even though when we spoke out the Mishnah, we said good, it's either the first one or the final one. That is the concept. The Mishnah, in explaining, is going to expand it. Same idea. It's going to expand it to another mitzias, to another case. And that will be like, let's say by heart. Let's say there's one row, only one row. And the row has 10 sheets. And two workers decide to gather the bundles. How are they going to do it? So they're going to start from the middle. Right? Let's go, the row is north-south. They're going to start from the middle. One person will go up and one person will go down. Normal volgeven, that they pick up bundle somewhere. That's yours. That's my half. They made up to divide it in half. Let's give everyone. The one on the top is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. When they both started in the middle, going in opposite directions, neither of them picked up the middle number 5. Each one of them had 5 behind them. It means from each one's perspective, number 5 is the Rashi Hashura. Like we explained, if you went over the first, even though you have to go back to get it, you didn't begin yet. You didn't begin and you forgot. You began later. And then each Shlamazel, when they were doing it, not only did they both forget number 5, so this guy goes 4, let's say 3, and then he forgot number 2. Then he got number 1. Number 2 will be Shikha. The other guy went 6. He forgot 6. He picked 7. He picked 8. He forgot 9. He picked up. So the 2 and the 8, that will be Shikha. But the number 5 won't be Shikha. That's the example the Mishnah wants to give. He's showing you just the chiddush. The nuance is that Rashi Ashuras doesn't have to be what you would call Rashi Ashuras. It's determined by the point from where the workers begin to work. And number 5 is for both Rashi Ashuras. Eilu and Rashi Ashuras, Shnaim, Sheschilu Bems Ashura. And Zed, this guy is going with Sofin. And this one is going with Daret. And they forgot Lifneim. Lifneim is number 2 and number 8. Lifneim means as they're going, like I mentioned, the guy picks up 4. That's in front of him, right? He's going to the north. He picks up 3 and he skips number 2. But he also forgot Lachareim. The one he began with number 4, he didn't pick up number 5. The one that's going to the Darim, he forgot number 5 behind him. But Lifneim, right? He picks up 6, he picks up 7, he skipped 8. So the din will always be Shalifneim Meshikha. It's not the beginning of the row. It also will demand for the worker to go back from number 1 to number 2. The Torah says, the one that's going to the Darim would have to go back from 9 to number 8. But the Chiddush is that Shal Achareyen Eino Shikha. That's there's no novelty. The Mishnah wants to show you how to apply Rashi Ashurais in this unusual case.
Rabbi,
Yes.
what if he skips 3 and 7, meaning like he skips only 1, not 2?
I think Shlomo is asking if he skips 6. It's his job, Shlomo, is to pick up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, the one who's going to the Darim. And not only does he have 5 behind him, if he has 6 behind him, it's not Shikha.
That ends up being the right.
Because that's behind him. That's Rashi Ashura.
No, not 6, 7. What if 5 he skips, 7 is started, 6 is started, and 7 is skips?
Of course 7. Of course 7 is Shikha. Yeah, it's as long as it's not the first or the final, it's Shikha. The nuance here is that the Rashi Hashurais is determined by the point of where you begin, and ahead of you is where you're going. That which is behind you is called the Rashi Hashurais. Okay. So, well, by the way, you're saying whether you meant it. Was if the guy began in numbers 7, so if he got 5 and 6, not shikha. Of course, in the next case, but for the next case, you don't need the exception of Rashi Yashurais because there's a general rule by shikha that on 3 there's never shikha. Okay, that's number 1. Now, the second case of the Mishnah, it's called Oimer Shekeneg Oimer Chiach. Now we're going to give the following scenario. Same rule. We're just going to make the Heicha Timsa a bit more exciting to point out the Chiddush. If you have a picture, it's going to be easy. I'll do my best without a picture. But guys, it's the same case. There's a field.
Picture on the chat if anybody's not
on. Yeah, Cayman is not on. I don't know how to do it. And if you know how to do it, I don't know how to do it.
No, but I'm saying I put on the chat on the.
Oh, the picture's on the chat. It really helps. This picture is even more important. But let me explain to you like this. Again, you have a field. There are 10 rows. Every row has 10 sheaves. Okay? This worker is going from top to bottom. Let's put the top, lahavdil, the way they're going. North is on the top. The emphasis is that, I don't know why they make these maps. East is on the top. Just don't know how you make a map. Okay? The north is on the top. You're going from the top, north, south. So we already mentioned that even though Rashi Yashurais, it includes the exception of the final, it would not include this exception that's not shikha on the last one in the first row because you're going on further. Eloma, like we explained, since the observer doesn't know whether you're going north, south, or east, west, so it's not the first, it's not the final north, south. If you forgot the last one on row number 10. But who knows, maybe you're going to change your directions, and if you're going to go either from west to east, it's going to be the first. And if you're going to go from east to west, it's going to be the final in the field. Let's just add some more, that instead of you forgetting on the first row from top to bottom 1, you forgot 2. Before we go on, same thing. Doesn't only have to be 1. But I have to add a nuance.
You forgot 2, you're saying it's still not shikha.
It's still not shikha.
It could be the head of the other row.
And not the end, not the final.
East-west.
In other words, in the case that I spoke, the Mishnah we spoke up before, that was you only forgot 1. So I keep on mentioning if you're going east-west or west-east, no matter which direction, it's going to be exempt from Rashi Ashuras. In the case that I just gave right now, where you forgot the last 2, not the last 1, the last 2, the only reason why A9, if you're looking at the map, the only why the second to last line won't be shikha is because what could it be, Danny? Could be the worker will go now from west to east. If the worker would be going from east to west, A9 also would be shikha because it's not Rashi Hashurais, because it's not the final one.
Why is it not the final one?
Because you have row number 10. What you're a then?
From east-west is the final one.
From east-west, it's not the final one because not 9. A9 is you have row number 10. You have a row afterwards. It's important. There's a little nuance. In other words, Rashi Ashurais excludes is the chiddush for the first or the final. A10, the case that the picture that they drew over here in the art scroll in the ratio of the Mishnah, it was simpler because whether you're going east-west or west-east, it's Rashi Ashurais. It's either the first or the final. A9 is also going to be excluded. Why? Because it might be the beginning. How is it the beginning of a row? Because you might be going from west-east. It's the beginning of a row. Every beginning of the row, even if you are in middle of gathering, the beginning of the row is always excluded.
Why do we say that by the beginning, but not for the end?
Akasha, let's leave it at that. Okay, that's good. Okay, I know that, but that's the way it works. Now, the chiddush of our Mishnah is that when you were going on row A and you're going from north-south, aside of you forgetting the final 2, aside of that, you forgot, he writes over here, you forgot the 4th. So you would think, as that what? That should also be not shekha, right? Because maybe what?
Going west and east, and it's the first one of row 4.
Very good. But we don't say that. Why don't we say that? Because after you forgot 4, you know what you picked up? 5. Yeah. So when a guy's looking, In other words, when you change directions, I get it that when you're going down, you can stop at a point, and then the lower part of the field go in the other direction. If you, after the one that you forgot in its direction that you're going, you picked up the next, then we're not mated. That's what the Mishnah wants to add. Beautiful. Hayachid, here it's only yachid. It's not two people. You're going from top to bottom. And the shachach lefanav ula'achrav. See, that's the word. La'achrav means, doesn't have to mean number 4. It means that the fact that you picked up number 5, Danny, the fact that you picked up number 5, now the one that you forgot is behind you in that direction. That's the shala'achrav.
Why is he in front of him?
In front of him is the one that's 9 and 10, because you never went beyond it. The worker never, there's no 11 for 9 and 10 ever to be behind him. Only there can you say, maybe go in the other direction. So it's limiting the oimer shekeneg the mechiach. It's gavaldik. Anything that's in front of him, the Mishnah is emphasizing it's not only number 10, even if it's number 9. And guys, even if you forgot, you know why the Mishnah doesn't say, or we're not giving an example of you forgetting 8 and 9 and 10, because 8, 9, and 10 is never shikha anyway. But the chiddush we're adding is that all that are in front, the most is 2. Not only 1, 2, I can still say the same logic. Who told you he forgot it? Maybe he's going to go to another direction. No, since there are adjacent oimarim unpicked yet, maybe it's going to be collected differently. But shalachrav, even though you could argue, 1 second, that the 4 maybe is the first, if you're going from west to east, is the first of Shura 4. You could have argued that. We don't say that because you passed it, because you picked up on this row, on column A, you picked up 5. That's the word. Shalachrav shikha. Beautiful.
The shalachrav shikha can go all the way up to 7A.
That's right. And in other words, you're going down the field. Think about it. You're going from north-south. Shikha means, the Torah says, in Parshas Kisei, loisashuv lakachtoi. If you were to pick it up, it's called going back. Because you were there, you were in front of it, you skipped it, you went afterwards. Masha Enke 9 and 10. Shahu babal tashuv, and Zajac says the Mishnah, that kol shu babal tashuv, shikha. Kol shu babal tashuv means even A4. Even A4. The kol she'enim babal tashuv, eina shikha. Right, shikha applies only if the sheep was forgotten in such a way where retrieving it involves returning. And that's that. And what we're going to have, okay, I thought we'll begin. I'm sorry, I started a few minutes late. Doesn't matter. All the dafim are relatively short. What the beauty of the Gemara will be, just to give a heads up, is that the emes is that shikha is not only shikha's oimer, the shikha's kama. And the exceptions that the Mishnah gave will always apply to both, because they are both learned from the same pasuk. We had that before. We'll begin next year. We'll just quote the pasuk in Parshas Kisei. The Torah is maramis. The Befedish, the Torah is speaking about L'sashuv lakachta. L'sashuv lakachta means not l'sashuv liktsoir. L'sashuv lakachta is about an oimer. But the pasuk begins with ksira. Since they are in the same pasuk, the rules that we learn here, we learn there. We'll stop over here.
Rabbi, in both cases of the Mishnah, 9, 10, let's say there's a second case. 9, 10 is shikha, right?
No. 9, 10 is not shikha.
It's not shikha, right. What about when you continue to row B and C and D? Then it became shikha or no?
No.
So it will never become shikha. Like even if you, what if you continue?
Okay, so Shlomo is pointing out something good. Let's go to the first case. We're saying that 8-10 is not shikha because you might be going from east and west. What happens if a person goes by to north-south, and then when they come into column B, they go all the way to 10. Then they go to column, so now what?
Then it's off on its own, so then it's shikha.
That was a sugi that we had before. So when you forgot it in the beginning, it wasn't shikha. When you forgot it, it wasn't shikha yet. Then it became shikha. In the beginning, it wasn't shikha. That's the third rule in the Mishnah. It's not shikha. What's the third in the Mishnah? When something.
No, that's you brought it to the city.
What's the difference? No, you didn't bring it. You separated. If there is an oimed, we paskin that's not shikha, it doesn't become shikha later.
I would
maybe the Gemara asks.
I would humbly opine Now, when you forgot one at the end of the row, what we're learning right now is that you can't say that that's shikha because maybe it was deliberate.
No.
Since you go on another row and then you leave it there, I think that's Megala, that actually it was shikha. You did forget it.
I would say that the Gabi might be right, but he might be wrong. And it's a win-win. It's like when a woman is pregnant. Is it a boy or a girl? There's nothing like if you got it wrong, big deal. If you got it right, we will all hear it. I promise you. You'll hear it without the machine.